Hi everybody, this is Tarot Ingi, and I haven't made a video for a while, so I'm a little bit rusty. I've lost my equipment, so not sure where it is, but I'll have to just do with the basics basically. So I thought I'd make just some entertainment videos. I've made a few already, just faceless videos. They're all just going to be more lighthearted, more fun, not so much going in depth, but I think that learning about the tarot cards this way can still be a lot easier actually, because if you have some reference points and things to compare the cards to, maybe it's easier to remember. And I'm going to talk about the shadow aspects of the major Arcana cards. I have written it as it's reversed, but it really is more the shadow, because reversed does not necessarily mean that it's negative. It can just mean that, something's a little bit blocked or delayed. But the shadow aspect is when it's on the really negative, and I'm going to take it to the most negative because, I'm talking about villain characters, and I get to talk about some of my favorite movies as well. And I think I have to have a look. I think The Tower is where I really get to go into my favorite movie. It's not really my favorite movie, but it's maybe the movie that scared me the most. Post is on my Patreon, so you can support me on Patreon if you want to. And I have timestamped everything, so you can just go and have a look. So the Fool, the shadow aspect of the Fool is that it's someone very reckless. It can also be someone who doesn't care about other people's safety, disrupt the order. So the perfect character for that is the Joker, and I think the Joker is really the Fool. Fool reverse, Fool shadow aspect of the Fool. Someone who has disregard for social norm, that's when it is the most negative. And this is someone who is out to destroy innocence, and that is the Joker. That is also the shadow aspects of the Fool. So if you in a tarot reading get the Fool in a very negative aspect, it is you're dealing basically with the shadow of the Fool. The Magician, the shadow aspect of the Magician is that you're dealing with someone who's very sinister, someone who's very talented and gifted and powerful, but they're using it in kind of a negative way. So there's a few examples that I thought of, but I thought the best one is probably Lex Luthor from the Superman movies. DC Universe, his arch nemesis of Superman. Very intelligent, has a vast display of resources. He's ambitious.
But he loved his Lex.
Get out of my head. Get out of my head!
They want control, they want dominion, but this is really someone who will con you. They are nefarious, and this is someone who bend others to their will. So you get someone who can almost put people under hypnosis, actually.
A look that led to an evening.
I love the femme fatale. So with the High Priestess, I had to go with there's several characters of femme fatale, but when High Priestess is really on the shadowy, it's someone who becomes obsessed with another person that they feel that they should control, and it's an emotional obsession, and it is Alex Forrest in Fatal Attraction, perfect example.
Hello?
Every time Beth answers the phone, she hangs up. I'm scared, Jimmy.
You play fair.
And you can really understand the most negative aspects of the High Priestess when it's really, really negative while watching that movie. Watch how she is obsessed with destroying him because she felt, rejected. She wants vengeance. She does not want him to return to his family. She just harasses him, violent outbursts, and she's a terrifying character. She goes deep within her own sinister nature. She has no control over her own emotions, no control over her own impulses. Gutless, heartless, spineless. Okay, Now I'm going with another femme fatale, and that is the Empress. When the Empress is really, really negative, you get Miss Mott in The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. This is a movie from 1992. It's a thriller. A little bit similar to The High Priestess, who wants revenge. She's driven by revenge, but she wants to control the family through the children. So that's why I chose her for the Empress, because the Empress, you know, is a mother. She infiltrates the family, posing as a nanny, but really she wants revenge for what happened to her husband. And there's a lot of spoilers, basically, but also she lost her unborn child. So she uses her maternal instincts to manipulate the family, create a rift between them, and she wants to. She basically also makes herself indispensable, which is a manipulative tactic of the Empress when it's very negative. So there are several good Emperor villain types, but I think the best one is Darth Vader. He is extremely powerful, as we know. When the Emperor is at its absolute worst, most negative, it is someone who wants to rule. They create chaos, but it's, you know, it's a rule that is obsessive and oppressive, and it creates a lot of chaos, and there is no moral direction. It is actually authoritarian rule. It's a dictator. So it's not a protector anymore, it's just a dictator. It uses a lot of fear, uses a lot of intimidation. It's someone who's much more powerful than others, so there's no balance there. They misuse his power, they subdue their opposition. There's no respect and loyalty, they don't believe in that. They only believe in maintaining their position through intimidation. Okay, so now I am with the Hierophant, when the Hierophant is really negative. And then it is zealotry. It is blind obedience. It is often a lot of hypocrisy. It's a dark side of faith. So I have to use religion as sort of a backdrop. So I use Silas from the Da Vinci Code. That is a albino who is a hitman. Very kind of a freaky character, because he is completely loyal to his own religious, you know, he's a fanatic basically. He's a tool of destruction under the guidance of his teacher. Okay, so with the Lovers card, I thought first I will go with Frank and Julia from Hellraiser. But that movie is so gruesome that I thought I didn't want that on my YouTube channel. But that could be an example of. But obviously, then it's so bad that, you know, that movie is so bad. Oh my god, it's actually really good, but it's yeah, it's horror basically. So I decided to go with another movie, and that is Frankenstein and His Bride. So this is about a scientist who is called Dr. Frankenstein, he defies natural laws by creating life, by basically creating this monster. And then he, you know, the monster demands a companion. He creates a female counterpart. The bride rejects the monster. In a modern adaptation, I think it's a conflict between Dr. Frankenstein, the monster, and his love interest. Annual cycle of conflict, destruction. It's disharmony rather than, you know, love and harmony. And it's also love, or trying to create a love based on the wrong principles, basically. With the Chariot, that was a little bit difficult to find the super villain of the Chariot, but I thought I'd go with the Night King in Game of Thrones, because he is a symbol of destruction. I also thought because he's traveling towards somewhere, so with the chariot, you know, you're going somewhere, you have a goal, an end game, a location where you need to be often. That is also the Night King. He wants to go beyond the wall. He leads a race of ice beings. He can erase the dead. He creates an army. And he is meant to defend against the first men, basically. However, he became so malevolent himself and is completely out of balance. So with the chariot, sometimes you have, you know, a good intention going bad with the chariot reverse, or when the chariot is very, very negative, and then it ends up spiraling out of control. And then you have nature that's beyond control, beyond reason. So you can have the supernatural elements with the chariot.
My name is Annie Wilkes.
In strength, you know, strength is really positive. It is about nurturing, caring, understanding. So when it's reversed, I had to find a femme fatale that is nurturing in all the wrong ways. So I went with Annie Wilkes in Misery. And, you know, it's from a Stephen King novel, and it's a combination of obsession and cruelty. So it's the polar opposite of Strength upright, that is about compassion and kindness. She basically stalks her favorite author, Paul Sheldon, and then she looks after him because she makes sure he has an accident. He becomes her patient, you know, hidden away in her cabin.
Dirty bird. How could you? Misery chest.
Basically, she has erratic behavior because she is obsessed with his creation, Misery Chastain, who he intends to kill in his letters from... instead of being a caregiver, she's a figure of terror, basically. One of my favorite movie characters is Vincent in Collide.
Hey, come on, I'll take it. I got 5 stops to make.
He looks like a lone wolf in that movie. He has silver grey hair. He wears like a silver suit. He's a very charismatic character. Very calculating and detached supervillain. So when Hermit is upright and it is very healthy, it's actually someone who's very emotionally available to somebody. But when it is reversed, or when it is very negative and it's very shadowy, it is someone who's very detached, someone who's very cold, very operate on their own, but it's more like through being more efficient. It's just like a cold-hearted calculation. It's isolation, dark inversion of the Hermit. And that movie is really, really good. He's a hitman in that movie, and he manipulates. He is extremely driven to get to his targets, but he's completely detached from any kind of emotions. So he has deep disillusions with humanity. His philosophy is emptiness of his own existence, basically. The search for meaning is it's not a deeper sense of spiritual connection to yourself, and this is at its worst, basically. This card is then just everything becomes corrupted. So for the Wheel of Fortune, I had to go with a very, very awesome villain, who is John Greer in Person of Interest. If you haven't watched Person of Interest, I recommend this series. It's absolutely the best, one of the best shows I've ever watched, if not the best. It's about AI and how AI is basically, there's one guy who's created like an AI that helps humanity, and there's another AI called a Samaritan, but it's like a Samaritan that's always trying to be helpful in the cruelest kind of way, micromanaging humanity so that nothing can ever go wrong, but then also taking away all free will away from humanity. And that must be maybe when the Wheel of Fortune is the absolute worst. It's when there is no destiny, there's no fate of humanity. Everything is just taken care of by an artificial force. And John Greer works for this force called the Samaritan, that AI.
And I saw the sunset for the first time in months. It's the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. But it wasn't a sunset at all. sky was on fire.
You know, orchestrating events, manipulating character, and the goal is just to eliminate all kind of misfortune that is actually misfortune that is needed in society to have any kind of freedom and free will. Then sometimes the bad things could happen, but they're trying to erase all kinds of disruption. And instead, what they do disrupt is the natural flow of events and doesn't leave any human growth at all. And that is when the Wheel of Fortune is really reversed and negative. Okay, one of my favorite villains is Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. Chilling blend of control, ruthlessness, and deception. He's a methodical drug lord, and he's very respected outwardly. But there is a very ruthless, cold-hearted supervillain behind that very cool, cold man. Actually, he's the owner of a fast food chain, but that's a front for his very clandestine drug empire. Okay, so for the Hanged Man, I chose Mr. Glass. The Hanged Man is someone who, you know, is hanging, so it's someone who can't really move as easily. It's a card for it's a waiting game. But when it's very negative, it's someone who maybe is restricted in some way, but maybe it is. You know, instead of there being insight due to the restrictions, because when something is a bit restricted, it's actually an enormous opportunity for growth. So Mr. Glass in Unbreakable, he is restricted because of his, you know, he has a genetic condition that makes his bones very brittle. And instead of using his intellect and the time that he has to read and research, he uses his time to read and research, but it is to do crime, basically. So he orchestrates a series of violent incidents to try and find someone who is his opposite. While he's very fragile, he finds someone who is impervious to harm.
I was waiting to hear a very specific combination of words, but they never came. Then one day I saw a news story about a train accident, and I heard them.
He you know, his actions is a culmination of his despair, basically. So instead of seeing the light through the limitation, he's just taken further into the dark.
Don't you know anything about Fantasia?
Okay, so my favorite movie from childhood is A Never-Ending Story, and this movie has a villain in it that is really the Death tarot card reversed, or when the Death card is very negative, and it is the wolf in A Never-Ending Story. And if you ever watch that movie, what the wolf is saying, so basically in A Never-Ending Story, it's about our imagination. It's creating a fantasy world that's very, very real. But then when people have no more dreams, they have no more imagination, and that fantasy world dies.
Why is Fantasia dying then?
Because people have begun to lose their hopes.
Wolf works for the nothing, and that's a force of nothingness that threatens to engulf the world of Fantasia, and just leaving emptiness and void, and doing that to create that despair and emptiness in people to control them.
And whoever has the control has the power.
Okay. So, Temperance at its most negative. I chose Tyler Durden from Fight Club because if you've seen this movie, you know that Tyler Durden is extremely, you know, he's a charismatic figure, but he leads people to chaos and destruction, and he's the opposite of moderation, you know.
Where is my mind? Where is my
So he's the alter ego of the protagonist. So while the protagonist is very shy, very careful, his alter ego, which is Tyler Durden, he's the opposite of that. He's always in control. He can lead the crowd. He's extremely sure of his own beliefs. He does not question his own beliefs at all. And his, the protagonist is suppressed. He has suppressed desires. He's frustrated. Tyler Durden, he is the opposite. He basically liberates him, but ultimately leads to destruction and widespread chaos. So sometimes with the tarot cards reversed, you get that you're able to resist something. But because I'm talking about it more as when it's very negative, I'm not going to really talk about it as when it's reversed and you're just resisting, or like I'm talking about these cards now as very, very negative, a negative influence in your life. So with the Devil tarot card, I chose Sauron from Lord of the Rings, because the tarot card, when the Devil tarot card is so negative, it's about someone who's extremely greedy. And of course, the Lord of the Rings is one ring to rule them all. It's about greed, ultimately.
The Dark Lord Sauron forged in a master ring to control all
He wants to oppress entire races, including elves, dwarves, and men. One ring to dominate all minds and will. So that is the Devil card at its absolute most negative. It's unchecked desire of power and control. And he has this ability to corrupt even the purest of hearts. So now we're gonna talk about the Tower, and there's only really one that I wanted to use for this tarot card here, and that this is a movie that terrified me. I watched it when I was around 15, 16. It terrified me, this movie. I was basically laid awake after watching this movie, thinking, wow, what the heck have I just watched? And that is Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lamb.
People will say we're in love.
Hannibal Lecter is a psychiatrist who is also a cannibal. He has been captured and he is in this high security facility. But he has to help the FBI find another killer, so they're giving him some freedoms, a less secure facility, and spoiler alert, he ends up escaping, basically. He has this ability to psychologically dismantle his victims and those around him, completely crushing their world. He's ruthless, cannibalistic killer. He's cunning. He is not just a physical threat, but also a psychological threat. And it is his ability to be a psychological threat that makes him so dangerous. And that is also when the Tower is at its absolute worst, it's because it's psychological.
And tell me how.
First principles, Clarice. Simplicity. Read Marcus Aurelius. Of each particular thing, ask, what is it in itself? What is its nature? What does he do, this man you seek?
He kills women.
No, that is incidental.
Okay, so in the Star, I had to look for the child theme, because with the Star, it's often it's your childhood. So with the Star, you have to look into your inner child, and there's something in your childhood that's affecting your day-to-day life now, if it shows up in your reading. And so I went with Esther in Orphan. She actually is an adult, but she has some sort of like genetic condition, so she looks like a child, but she's like a 30-year-old, and she's a killer. So she uses the fact that she looks childlike to manipulate and terrorize her adopted family. They adopted from an orphanage. So she just creates a lot of disturbing events. It stems from loss of hope, a troubling past.
My name is Esther.
Why aren't you down at the party?
I've never really seen the point of it. I guess I'm different.
Now we're with the Moon, so we are with another femme fatale. This one is Hedy Carlson in Single White Female. Basically, it's about a girl or a woman who she wants a roommate, so she puts an ad in a paper, single white female, wanted, and then what she gets is a very unstable roommate, basically.
Really?
Who cares?
Where the hell have you been?
When the moon is very negative, it's confusion, deception. It's confusion, deception, and unmasking of hidden truths. And that is basically Hetty's character. She has sinister motives. She seems sweet and shy, but she is actually driven by obsession, jealousy, and she ends up stealing her identity. She dresses like her, she acts like her, she wants to be her, basically. And then when her intention is gradually revealed, just as the moon is gradually revealed, we see her hidden motives, and it is actually very disturbing. It's a very, very disturbing movie. Okay, so now we are with the sun, so you have to go back to the child theme again. So I went with Brandon Breyer in Brightburn. So this, I think, this is like a twist on the superhero genre. So like, what if Superman was evil instead of good, you know? What sort of child would you have then? So Brandon Breyer, he's a young boy who has been adopted by a rural couple. He has superpowers. It seems like a blessing, but you know, he grows older. He actually doesn't turn good, he turns bad. He has these amazing superhero powers. And instead of using them for good like Superman does, he just uses them for bad. He just becomes increasingly malevolent. So he just uses his powers to terrorize and harm those around him. And he has his own, like, this feeling of rejection. That is what fuels him into becoming a supervillain. I think he senses that everyone is scared of him. He has resentment, and he feels a sense of betrayal, and that makes him lash out, basically. Okay, so with the Judgment, I really didn't know which character to use. Judgment is a very, very spiritual card. It's about awakening from feeling kind of dead inside, you know, then something happens to awaken you. But what about if it's reversed and you just kind of stay in the grave, kind of thing, as a metaphor? So I thought I'd go with Dracula, because, you know, he's in a coffin, basically, sleeps in a coffin.
Side to him, I find irresistible.
Dracula is a century-old vampire. He has immortality, power, and control. He is cursed, and that's, you know, with the Judgment reverse, sometimes you can feel like something is haunted, you know. He has dark desires. That is another theme in Judgment when it's very negative.
What are you?
Nightmare on Elm Street. This is the World Tarot card reversed.
There was somebody else there.
He has returned from the dead as a dream villain to exact revenge and terror. It's unresolved vengeance. It's about incompletion. He has no closure. You know, these are all themes in the World Tarot card when it is at its absolute worst. And there's just an endless cycle of fear and violence. So it's just actually a really, really scary movie. It's a erosion of safe space. So when you're reading tarot cards, you can understand them by looking at the reversed and hidden shadowy aspects of them. It's actually a really quick way to learn the tarot. I learned a lot of the positive upright meanings by studying the negative reverse meanings, because then I had something to compare it to. Okay guys, bye bye.